Calorie deficit, calorie deficit, calorie deficit. Everybody and their grandma throws around this word like it's the new hello. And in this video, I'm going to talk about exactly what a calorie deficit is, how you can maintain a calorie deficit in such a busy life, and basically break down why so many people struggle to understand what a calorie deficit is, maintain a calorie deficit, and reach their fat loss goal journey and overall their destination. Welcome to another video. My name is Matthew Leszczynski, and this is Unscripted by me, Matthew Leszczynski, where I make videos on how you can look, feel, and think better with just unscripted thoughts and just trying to give you authentic lessons and advice from my journey to help you speed up yours a little bit. So let's get into it. What is a calorie deficit? So, in the most basic, simplest form, a calorie deficit is inputting less energy into your body. It's just less energy, because calories is a form of energy. So why is it so difficult? Well, if we think about what a calorie deficit is, a calorie deficit is, imagine your fuel tank in your car. The fuel tank in your car is your fat, and you are trying to burn through that fuel. So how would you burn through that fuel? You would drive the car and continue driving it until it's out of fuel. Or if you wanted to get to a destination, but get to that destination not on a full tank of fuel, but on an empty tank of fuel, or with, call it 10 to 12% left of fuel, right? Think of it in terms of your body fat, 10 to 12% body fat. What would you need to do? Well, you're not going to be constantly adding on your journey. Let's say you're going from Toronto to Miami. You're not going to be constantly filling it up to full, right? You're going to maybe fill it up a little bit, fill it up halfway at one point, and just constantly making sure that by the time you get to Miami, you only have 12% of fuel left. But if you constantly keep filling up your car to the full amount of its fuel capacity, what's going to end up happening? By the time you get to Miami, you are going to be at a full tank of fuel. So you will never reach your calorie deficit or your 10 to 12% of fuel goal. And it's the same thing with food. In order to achieve that 10 to 12% body fat percentage, you need to be putting in a lower amount of food than your body is capable of burning. And how do you figure this out? You just go online, input some basic metrics, and a calculator will give you your rough estimate of your body that your body burns throughout the day, and also just what an appropriate deficit would be. Obviously, the standard is to start anywhere between 300 to 500 calories. Why? Because it's the best to maintain. When you're driving down to Miami, you want to still have, some fuel in your tank to actually make it there. Because the goal isn't to get down to 12%. The goal is to actually make it to 12% on fuel to Miami. It's not just to shut down halfway and then fall off on that 12% body fat or 12% fuel, whichever analogy is easier to understand. So that's why a 300 to 500 calorie deficit is what is standardized, because you will actually be able to make it to your body fat, weight, whatever metrics you're chasing, goal without number one, burning out, crashing out, having to restart, or even giving up. Because let's be honest, if you can't maintain 300 calories, if you can't be a little bit hungry by 300 calories throughout your day, that's another issue. 500 calories, same thing. Once you tap into those bigger deficits, like 1,000, 1,500, obviously depending on your current body weight, that's where things get tricky. That's where you're going to be constantly thinking about food. And especially if you're a busy individual, the last thing on your mind you want to be thinking about is, oh, I'm so hungry, oh, I need food, etc., etc. So that's basic outline of what a calorie deficit is. Okay, so now let's think about it and ask ourselves, why do so many people struggle with a calorie deficit? Why is it so difficult to maintain and stay in a calorie deficit in general? Well, number one, it's because the society that we live in today's world, is specifically designed to get as much calories in as small portions as possible. And that's why it is so easy to overeat. That's why it is so hard to stay in a calorie deficit, especially if you don't know the types of foods to be picking and choosing to be in a calorie deficit. And then number two, it's because people, or especially I, when I started my journey, I didn't even grasp how easy it is to go over a calorie deficit. And then everybody thinks they're in a calorie deficit, but then at the end of the day, they have a little bit of sauce, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of ketchup. They're like, oh, but I'm eating clean. I'm having chicken, rice, my veggies, my fibers, I'm hitting my macros. But then you're not counting the small things that add up. If you're not losing fat, you're just not in a calorie deficit. And you may think you're eating healthy, you may think you're doing everything right, but at the end of the day, you could be. And if you're stagnated at your weight, let's say you're at 200 pounds, and if you're not going down, it's because you're eating at that maintenance of 200 calories. And if you're wondering why I'm huffing and puffing right now while I'm making this video, it's because I just finished cardio and I'm walking up this inclined mountain and it's freaking difficult. But anyway, let's get back into it. So those are the reasons why it's so difficult to stay in a calorie deficit. And then number two, or actually number three, is a calorie deficit requires some form of restriction. So how can you restrict yourself to maintain and stay in a calorie deficit? Well, there's actually a couple of ways. This is Candyland, by the way. I'm in Turkey, Bodrum right now. It's actually a pretty sick place. Booked an Airbnb, not an Airbnb, a hotel with my brother, my cousin, and my brother's girlfriend. We're just having an amazing time out here. Getting some sun, getting some UV, trying to get some tanning in, and making this wonderful video for you guys. Okay. So, how do you actually stay in a calorie deficit? Well, there's a couple ways, like I mentioned. The number one most effective way is to track every single thing. Why? Because you know what you're putting inside your body. If you're a high performer, you're tracking already. Number one, you're spending, you're saving. Hopefully, you're tracking the amount of money you're making. And then you're tracking other things in your life, your sleep, that's another big one, your water intake. So why aren't you tracking your food? Because if you just started tracking your food, that would solve majority of your weight loss issues. And the reason I didn't want to track my food for such a long time and put it off was because I was lazy. I didn't want to track my food. I just thought, oh, okay, I'm going to be, lenient. I'm just going to eat healthy sometimes. I'm going to, just watch what I eat, maybe have a salad here and there. And then what ended up happening? I never ended up losing weight. I just never ended up losing weight because I was lenient and I was lazy, and I just didn't have I just didn't feel enough pain to change. I was just comfortable. I was okay, you know what, it's not that bad. And then until I reached a point where I was just so sick of what I saw in the mirror, and I just felt like shit. I was like, this doesn't represent what's going on in here. And I want my body to be a physical manifestation and representation of how my mind works, of what kind of level of discipline it reflects, and then also the standards that I carry in my mind. And I'm still not content with how I look, and I'm still working towards getting even better shape. But I know at the end of the day, it's just a journey, and I'm not expecting anything to happen overnight. Currently, I'm sitting around, like, depending on my water, like 12 to 13%. I'm still trying to get into those single-digit body fat percentages, but that is a whole nother game, and it's a whole nother struggle, especially if you're doing it someone naturally. So that's the first method. The next way, if you don't want to track, it's pretty simple. And this is what I recommend to anybody that doesn't really have the time of the day to be tracking and, you know, be kind of lenient or strict with what they're putting inside their body, is eat the exact same thing every single day. Figure out what your macros are. Figure out what your calorie deficit should be for the goal you're trying to achieve in the time period you're trying to achieve it in. Find foods. Find one, like, however many meals you want to eat through the day, whether it's, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5. I usually do 2 because it's just so much easier. 2 big meals, that's it. And then eat that same thing every single day, without end, without question, until you reach your goal. You know, one day you're gonna, you know, have a cheat meal, etc. It's fine. Don't stress about it. Just get back into it. And that's one of my favorite methods. It's because it removes decision fatigue. It helps you not think about, oh, what do I need to eat today? What do I need to pack for work? What do I need to eat when I get back from work? What do I need to buy when I go to the grocery store? Do you know how fast I go? Like, some people spend so much of their time grocery shopping. It's insane. They'll spend, you know, 2, 3, sometimes even 4 hours at the grocery store, especially, you know, if you're, you know, jumping from store to store. I promise you guys, I'm in and out in less than 3 minutes. I go to the aisle, I know exactly where everything is that I need. I'm in and out, I grab everything, and I'm gone. Why? Because I just buy the exact same thing every single day. So that's the second method, which I highly recommend. If you don't like tracking, that's a great thing. And if you're somebody that doesn't need variety, oh, I need something new every single day, oh, I need a new meal, I need to try something new, I need to eat something new, I need this new spontaneity. It's your food. Like, you know, your cheat meals are for spontaneity. Your regular meals, they shouldn't be this spontaneous thing. They should just do what food is meant to be done for and used for. Performance, yeah, but it's just performance. It's just fuel. Performance. That's all you need it for. And then obviously, you know, the better you eat, some benefits come with it. You look better, you feel better, you think better, etc. You're healthier. So now we have those 2 methods. Where can we go to next? The last one, it's good, but it's not necessarily my favorite. Obviously, it's widely used, but this is something where also you don't like I don't want to eat the same thing every single day, but I still don't also want to track my calories. Then I recommend you this if you're this type of person. I've experimented with this. This is good too. Fast for the first half of your day, majority of your day. And it's a great method because it just, again, fasting isn't this magical thing for, you know, insane health benefits. Yeah, when you hit, you know, 48 hours, 72 hours, 4 days a week, yeah, you're going to get some insane benefits. But a couple hours, chill out. You're just limiting the amount of calories. You're just closing your eating window and buffering it. So how does the method work? Fast for the first couple of hours of the day. Push your first meal till 2, 3, 4. And then as your first couple meals, whether it again depends on how many meals you want throughout the day, the first meal, call it just protein, just fats. So whether that's going to be some eggs and avocado, whether that's going to be some Greek yogurt and whatever you like with your Greek yogurt, or even some small carbohydrate, not any simple carbohydrates like bread and all those crazy shit foods that are just insanely spiking your insulin and blood sugar. But maybe like a banana with your yogurt, oats. Keep it simple. And then again, you're going to have another meal. If you need 3, then your second meal as well is going to be just proteins and fats. And then your last meal is where you can have and indulge in like some carbohydrates, a bigger meal like rice, chicken, fish, veggies, potatoes, sweet potatoes, ground beef, all these great things. And that just gives you number 1, a smaller window to eat, but also number 2, keeps you in a deficit because you're just focusing on proteins as your main source of fuel at the beginning of the day. So we've covered what a calorie deficit is. We've covered why it's so difficult to stay in a calorie deficit. And we've also covered how to maximize and actually be in a calorie deficit. Now I really want to kind of conclude by talking about how long, but also why people struggle with calorie deficits, and the mindset perspective that you kind of need towards it. The shift that really helped me is the easiest way to stay in a calorie deficit, like unconsciously, is by eating whole foods. And I know it's overused, and I know a lot of people kind of glamorize this whole thing, but there's a reason it works. And the reason is really simple. It's because whole foods are, number 1, going to satiate you, meaning it's going to keep you full. Number 2, they usually come with big portions, like 500 calories of chicken breast and rice and potatoes and broccoli. Yeah, it sounds boring, but at the end of the day, it's so much food that you're not even going to know what to do with yourself afterwards. You might not even want a second or third meal, rather than having 500 calories of a sandwich from McDonald's or 500 calories from a slice of pizza. Like, you're going to eat one slice of pizza and you're going to be starving 2 hours later. You're going to eat 500 calories of chicken breast, potatoes, whatever it is that's whole food, and you're going to be full for the next 4 to 6 hours. So, sure, you can use things to make these foods taste a little bit better, but at the end of the day, the more you step into foods and sauces and spices and seasoning that aren't single ingredient, is when you are going to struggle to stay in that deficit again. So have that perspective shift. If just 90% of your diet comes from whole foods, single ingredient foods, then you don't even need to worry about staying in a calorie deficit, because your body will just naturally adapt, and it will just unconsciously, 3 months later, I've only been eating 90% single ingredient whole foods. I'm already down 30 pounds. What happened? It's because you're eating what you're meant to be eating, right? Not chocolate croissants with almonds, nuts, and Nutella inside of it, and then you wonder, why can't I why can't I lose fat? I'm in a calorie deficit. So that's the one perspective shift that I really want to leave with you guys, is the best way to stay in a calorie deficit. And I really hope this video helped. If it did, like, subscribe if you're new, share it with somebody who you think that might be struggling to be in a calorie deficit or to understand a calorie deficit. And I hope this helped you guys. If you're new here, my name is Matthew. Share this video, because this is how, you know, we're gonna be able to help other people be healthier, look better, and feel better. Love you guys. See you in the next one. Create more than you consume. Serve others. Love everyone. Till next time. Peace.